Good evening. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission to order on April 14th, 2016. Please let the record reflect that 4 of the Planning Commissioners are in attendance, with Commissioner Dalemy that with an excused absence, or no ADA required. So at this time, if Commissioner Ludden would lead us in the pledge.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. So at this time, if anybody, let's see, with no presentation items, public comments. If anyone would like to address the Planning Commission about an item not listed on the agenda, this is the time. And we don't have any speakers requests filled out at this time, but if you would like to, and you're really quick, fill out one and we could fit you in later. Consent calendar, if someone would make a motion.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Any discussion? Let's vote. Okay. Will be presented.
Our first public hearing is a use permit for an animal daycare facility, and Amanda Loffer has a staff report this evening.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is a use permit to allow a dog daycare and boarding facility with veterinary and grooming services located at 23222 Lake Center Drive. The applicant is proposing interior tenant improvements to allow for a lobby, staff lounge, veterinary clinic, grooming area, cat boarding room, storage, and 10 indoor play rooms with kennels for dogs. Exterior modifications are limited to repainting the building and parking lot restriping. The proposed facility could accommodate a maximum of 180 animals with 21 employees at any given time. The boarding area could accommodate up to 144 dogs and 16 cats, while the veterinary clinic could service up to 20 animals at any given time. The grooming and vet services are open to the general public. Additional information regarding the parking requirements for each use can be found in the staff report. The nearest residential property is approximately 400 feet away from the subject site and across Rockfield Boulevard. With the proposed sound attenuation materials and the distance between the proposed site and nearest residential use, they would not be affected by the potential noise generated from this site. The project meets all requirements of the zoning code and is compliant with the general plan designation. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of this use permit and would be happy to answer any questions. Also, the applicant is here this evening if you do have any questions for him.
Thank you, Amanda, as always. Does anybody have any questions of Miss Amanda? All right, well, in our open public hearing, we will see if we have any speakers. Do we have any speakers on the matter? All right. So let's bring it back here. Do we have any discussion on the matter?
Well, I think this is a fabulous location for this use. I'm always intrigued about parking. I don't think we'll have a problem. I would like to see, well, I guess I'm okay with parking. I don't think it'll be a problem. I can't imagine that if there is, how they're going to deal with that. Others have to, work it out, because there's no place for them to get parking from. I mean, it's isolated there, which they'll make it work. They'll have to.
Well, isn't there something in there that if they don't make it work, it comes back to us and
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Also, Wagley, the dog daycare company, they are developing an app right now that would allow customers to check in through the app to speed up the process of dropping off the animals. So that could also help with the parking issue as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Great, that's good news.
Anybody else? Then might I ask for,
Make a motion that we approve staff recommendation to approve this dog daycare center
and,
and to close the public hearing.
great,
I'll second.
great. All right, is there any further discussion? Hearing none? Let's vote. All right, next.
Our next item is a minor sign plan program and site development permit for a remodel and related freeway-oriented signage. Recently received correspondence from the applicant. They're going to work on redesigning portions of the projects, and they have asked that this item be continued to a date uncertain. We'll continue to work with them, and when the item's ready, we'll re-advertise and bring it back to the commission.
Thank you. All right, so moving right along then.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, you would want to take a vote to take the item, to continue the item to a date uncertain.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Yeah, do you need a motion or not to
Yes.
continue? Okay, I'll also make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, let's vote on that. Motion carries. So next then, Gail.
Our next item is a site development permit for 58-unit multifamily project in Portola Center. And Nikki Wetzel has a staff report for this item.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good evening, Chair Fuentes and members of the Commission. Before you tonight are development plans for the senior housing project in the Portola Center development. The proposed 57 affordable senior housing units, 10,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space, as well as the related development standards, including parking setbacks and the 45-foot height limit, were approved as part of the Portola Center area plan in 2008. As provided for in the Portola Center development agreement, the applicant proposes that one unit be transferred from the adjacent multifamily site to be included in the proposed project, which results in the project that is proposed as 58 units in the four-story, 55,324 square foot building. The site sits approximately 22 feet below the street grade of Glen Ranch Road, and today the applicant provided some view simulations that Amanda's going to help me with clicking through to assist the Commission and the public in seeing how that project would sit on the site as viewed from different angles on Glen Ranch Road. So the first view that you're seeing here is approximately 1,000 feet east of the Saddleback Ranch Road, Glen Ranch Road intersection along Glen Ranch Road if you were heading west along the street there. The second view is more or less at the intersection of Saddleback Ranch Road and Glen Ranch Road facing south into the project. And then the third view is east along Glen Ranch Road there. As permitted in the Portola Hills planned community, the applicant requests an alternative development standard to permit an architectural tower on the building's north elevation. The 61-foot tall tower element exceeds the maximum permitted architectural projection height of 55 feet by 6 feet, as it is proposed in 61. This as well as the project resolution describes criteria required for approval of the alternative development standard, and the applicant's justification letter was also included with your report. The project complies with all applicable development standards and the architectural design guidelines of the Portola Center area plan. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission adopt a resolution approving the project subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the resolution. That was also attached to your report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I would point out there was a materials and color board, a physical one provided for you here in addition to the one provided in paper with your packet. And the applicant, Scott Malloy, and his team are also here tonight to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, so we'll open the public hearing. Do we have any questions of staff?
I do have a question. Nikki, in some of the elevations and things that we're seeing here, are there any views that you're aware of wherein the full height of the 61 feet would be visible from any public view? I mean, we're looking, there's walls that are interfering with that actual, I won't say interfering, but they're dispersing the actual view. I'm just looking to see, is there a point of view that we can see the entire 4 stories plus at any one point that you're aware of?
If I could think of, so when you enter the project, as you cross Glen Ranch Road there, you're going to be on, I think it's Portola Oaks Drive, which is the entry into the project. On that street, the project site sits 5 feet higher, so there would be the possibility that you would see the full height there, but it is set back across, quite set back in that area, so it's not right up against the street there.
Okay, so from, as near as I can tell, and you can just kind of verify this, from the general public view traveling on Glen Ranch Road or Saddleback or anything, they're not going to see the full height of this building. You're going to only see that if you actually go down on Portola Oaks and you're actually at the facility itself then.
And that's what these view simulations are attempting to show, the
Right.
context of the street in relationship to the site and the building.
Great.
And I would note, too, that the holly oak trees shown there are, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, the approved street trees that are represented there along that street edge.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Does anybody else have questions of staff? Okay. So, we have some speakers. Please state your name and city of residence, and please limit yourself to 3 minutes.
Scott Malloy.
Good evening. My name is Scott Malloy with Baldwin & Sons. We're here representing the applicant. I live in the city of San Diego. I just wanted to clarify one thing on the view simulations. If you could click back through them. That's the view coming up Glen Ranch Road looking east as you approach the Saddleback Ranch Road intersection. So that's what most of the they're coming home and making the left turn up Saddleback Ranch Road. That's the view of the building there. The next one is coming down Saddleback Ranch Road and sort of looking to the southeast at the building at the top of the intersection there. And that's what they'll see in the morning when they're leaving. And then the last view is the view about 1,000 feet east on Glen Ranch Road, looking west as you're heading towards the Saddleback Ranch Road intersection. That's the view you would see, which is mostly almost completely obscure. So I just wanted to clarify those things and answer on the building architecture, and I'm the applicant. I can answer questions on the site design and other issues related.
I asked you about the trees. Are they full size when you plant them, or are they take 10 years to get to that?
They'll take 10 plus years to get to that size, but we felt it was probably best appropriate just to represent what the mature growth of the trees was for these simulations. So that's what you're seeing is the mature growth of those trees at 30 feet and 15 feet wide.
I have one question going back to the tower again. How do you plan to light that at night? Will it have a lot of lighting, a subdued lighting?
That's a really good question. I don't think it's going to have a lot of lighting because 3/4 of the building is residential, and so we won't want to have this be a well-lit building at night necessarily for the residents. They'll want less lighting because they're going to try to sleep there. But, actually, Ed, can you answer that question? Because I think we may have some accent lighting related to the tower itself.
Ed, could you just state your city residence and your full name, please?
Sure. Ed Leonard. I live in the city of San Diego. The side of the tower is going to be primarily on the ground floor retail. And so the lighting would accent the retail portion of the project. There might be some accent lighting on the tower, but again, this is a residential project, and we want to respect that and the residents there. So it would be minimal on the tower. But, the primary lighting would be the retail.
So all your retail lighting and everything will stay on the first floor. You're going to have signage up above the first floor.
Correct. There would be signage above the storefront mounted on in between the storefront. So yeah, the primary objective there would to be to light the retail.
Okay. Now, is the retail portion open to, as, for lack of a better word, to the general public, or is it just the people that live in the buildings?
Well, the retail is open to the general public. Yes, we want to serve the community. Scott may have something to say about that, but.
Hi, my name is Nick Lee. I'm with Baldwin & Sons. I'm a resident of the city of San Diego. It is intended to be community-serving retail, so something that can serve the entire Portola development and the people around it, nothing limited to just the residents.
Okay, and then the other question, I guess we're always concerned about parking. Are the residents, each unit assigned a parking spot, or is it first come, first serve, or how does that work?
We have separated parking for the residential portion of the project versus the retail portion of the project, and the residential will be assigned parking on the residential side of it.
One per unit, is that?
One per unit, yes.
Okay. And do you know the minimum age to move into there?
55.
55. Now, if, say, the guy has a 50-year-old wife or whatever, that would be okay at that point, right? As long as...
Honestly, I'm not sure on that situation at this point.
You qualify, Mark. Don't worry.
Yeah. I know that's scary. I'm qualifying for all this stuff. But, okay, then the other question that I would have, would a 30-year-old son be allowed to live in there, or do you know?
All the units are one bedroom, and so it precludes that type of a situation. I'm not sure on the husband-wife situation, but I'm not on the child that would not be allowed.
Okay.
And our partner on this project is Chelsea. They're an affordable housing developer, and they've done both regular affordable housing and senior all over Southern California. They're very experienced in this, and they have those kind of processes pretty well dialed in.
And then assuming if one gets to the point where one needs a caregiver or whatever, then they would probably have to move to some other facility, is that?
That's typically, yes. This is for people who are self-sufficient in the senior years.
Okay.
I had one more question. On the resident parking, how do you plan to regulate that so you don't have retail people trying to park in the resident parking?
So you can't access the resident parking unless you drive into the community of Portola Hills. There's a gated entrance basically between the commercial entry and the residential entry. And so you'd have to be a resident of Portola Hills to access the residential parking. There's no other way to get there. And we provided 61 spaces, so we've got 58 spaces for the residents and the manager, and then we have some extra spaces just because we were able to provide that on site.
So if you're a guest, then you're going to park in the retail parking?
No, if you're a guest, you will have access because one of the residents will be able to let you in as a guest.
It's my only comment. I looked at 57, 58 apartments, 60 parking places. If a few of them have two cars, you're running out of parking.
Yeah, the reality is that, especially with affordable housing, and they've done some studies now in different parts of Southern California, because the residents don't have a lot of money, these are people that are making 40, 50, 60% of area median income. They're retired or nearing retirement. They don't have the ability to have two cars. If they had two cars, they're not renting or living in a one-bedroom studio of 550 square feet. So the odds of them having two cars is extremely unlikely, and the operator of the affordable housing project won't allow them to bring more than a single car on the site. And the reality is what we'll end up finding is very likely is that not all 57 spaces get used. There will be a lot of people that don't have a car at all. So there'll be a decent percentage, usually 10 or 15% is what they're finding. So the demand for parking for affordable housing, it has now pretty consistently shown that it's less than what cities and the general public would expect. So,
Staff, do you concur with that? You concur with his comment about the parking?
Yes, we do.
So the parking issue sounds like it will be handled through the application as to who gets to rent the unit. They come in and they've got more than one car, that's not to their advantage, is what it sounds like.
That's right, and as some of the commission members may recall, we toured some affordable housing projects. We staff toured some projects in San Clemente, and it's not uncommon at all to find residents with zero cars. It is a income qualified project.
Okay.
It's most likely that some of what you're trying to say then is some of that retail would be there in order to satisfy the needs of the residents that live there because they don't have a car. Is that true?
I'm sorry, can you?
Retail that you would have on the ground floor would be to accommodate those residents that don't have a car, that can't get around.
I think there's definitely going to be, it's not just the residents of the affordable site, it'll be the residents of the multifamily site, it'll be the other residents of Portola Hills, it'll be the residents of people that live in the existing Portola Hills community. Yeah, I think the intent really behind the commercial component to the site has always been that this is a neighborhood-serving, community-serving commercial area with some kind of simple, low-scale retail establishments, whether it's a restaurant, a coffee shop, maybe a dry cleaners, uses that really cater heavily to the surrounding community, and that people will actually walk to these uses that live in the neighborhood, that are over at the 5-acre park at a ball game. They'll walk over, have a soda pop or a cup of coffee or something while their kids practicing. I think that is the intent, is that this commercial center is not like your typical large format retail. This is small, kind of more mom and pop, locally serving retail. So
what type of tenants have you put in other projects like this?
Nick could probably better answer that question. I haven't been involved in that part of the process with our company.
And on this one, we are looking for things like it's the community coffee shop. Scott was right on anything, the tailors, maybe a little storefront bank. It's anything that can serve the community and the local residents. Most retail is in a larger format. You guys see a lot of them through your city where you have a big anchor and then you have small stores that go along with those anchors. Because we don't have an anchor, we don't have the size for it in this place, it is going to be something that's relying on the community immediately around it to support.
So it would have something like a convenience market or something like that where you could buy things.
And that would be one of those uses that we would love. A little coffee shop, a neighborhood coffee shop would be a fantastic use. We've just started going out looking for tenants on it, so we don't really have anybody signed up yet, but that's been the interest. We did get one email about somebody who would like to open a coffee shop. So those are the type of things that we think that people will use. If you go around to other kind of communities where you see things like this, it's a lot of, I've seen little hair salons, I've seen a lot of banks, things like that. They're just little storefront places because there's not a lot of square footage. The total square footage is 10,000 square feet. So as you break that up over a couple of uses, you really are looking at more boutique-type uses.
If I could just add to that comment, and for some of the newer commissioners, in 2013, the Planning Commission and the City Council, subsequent to that, did approve an area plan for Portola Center. We also did that for Shea Baker and Serrano Summit. So this is the actual document that gets approved along with the subdivision maps. And so there's a lot of detail about the project that's included in the area plan, certainly all of the development standards, the architectural criteria, and we have included in here a list of uses that are permitted and conditionally permitted in that mixed-use area. So many of these items have been discussed, and actually the types of uses, we had a lot of input from community members who want to make sure that, we had smaller scale uses there.
Thank you.
Okay, another speaker. David Herzberg.
Good evening. Hello, I'm David Herzberg, and I've lived in Portola Hills, Lake Forest for 25 years. I was highly involved in the public process of Portola Center as it moved through the Planning Commission in 2013. I think Mr. Verplank would agree with that statement, and it's very nice to see you here, sir. My concerns were submitted to you in a letter form that you received in your packet, and I also took the additional time to meet with city staff about this issue. So here are my 3 slightly updated problems with this project. Number 1, first let's all get in my personal time machine and go back to 2013. When we were all last together, this project had been scaled down to 10,000 square feet of retail. There was a very limited discussion of some type of second-story living quarter type apartments to be built above the retail. That's where we left it in 2013. No one at that time talked about a 4-story building at this location. Let me state this very clearly. I do not have a problem with 58 apartments for seniors in need of subsidized, affordable housing. What I have a problem with is the proposed height of this structure. It is completely and utterly out of proportion in size to anything else in either the existing Portola Hills community or the new housing going in at Portola Center. And while these are nice, The moment you pass Oakley coming up that hill, you are going to see a 4-story building. There is a quarter mile of open space, and you have a direct view across the at this building, even though it's going to be down 20 feet below grade. Plus, the building looks like a bland Hampton Inn hotel, architecturally. Suitable to be built next to the 5 freeway at the El Toro off-ramp. I'm being serious here. The simplest solution to this entire problem is to build over the resident parking, okay, the assigned parking lot for the residents, spread out the footprint, and lower this building a floor or two. I have examples, but I'm probably not going to be able to have time to show it. Number 2, and I want to get a clarification if I didn't hear something here right. There are only 61 assigned parking spaces for the residents who are going to live in this apartment. You have 58 apartments. What happens if you have multiple senior couples who own 2 cars? I really disagree with this thing that poor people don't own cars. Seriously, folks, let's get real. This is Southern California. People have cars. Where are they supposed to park after you run out of the assigned spots? Staff suggested to me at my meeting that the income levels, they wouldn't have 2 cars. I just don't believe this. So I asked the staff and I asked the developer, and I actually want this firm because I don't know if I just heard this right. Are you going to put in your CC&Rs that they can only have 1 car if they live in an apartment if they are a couple?
It's regulated by the affordable housing operator.
But does that say, state to me, are you going to have a requirement for 1 car?
Well, what I can tell you is it'll be regulated by the affordable housing.
Okay, so we don't know whether we're going to have a car or not. So we could have multiple cars, and we have a park, and we have a retail center. So I have a real issue because parking in this town is beginning to be more and more of a problem. I believe if you don't have that requirement firm before you start putting people in there, we're going to have a problem. So I think the developer needs to provide additional parking. Number 3, and I know I'm running over, you can cut me off. These are small apartments, roughly 525 square feet. However, this building will have outstanding views of the new park, the ocean, and Saddleback Valley. Yet there are no individual private balconies for each apartment. Don't you think a senior or a senior couple who only have 525 square feet of living space might want to have a private space outside of their door to sit and take in the wonderful views this building has? It's situated on an amazing piece of property. I see only 1 small, 3rd floor, 352 square foot resident balcony on the plan for 58 apartments. My deck in my backyard is bigger than that. The only other
Can you wrap it up, Mr. Herzberg? I'm so sorry.
Okay, and the only other public space is in the back. And what I say to you, I'm just going to ask your planning commissioners, if this was put in your community, in your neighborhood, would you accept it?
Thank you.
Kimberly Alford.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Alford, and I'm living in Portola Hills. And I just have to say ditto to everything that we just heard from Dave. A 4-story building I don't think is appropriate for this area. And I'm also very concerned about the amount of parking, or limited amount of parking. And I don't really see too much as far as public transportation. I lived in Europe for quite a few years, and people went around there without having vehicles, and that was the norm. But I don't find that to be the norm here in Southern California, and especially not in this area. So I am not opposed to having senior assisted living in our neighborhood. I think that's fantastic. But I think that a lot more work can be done on the architecture. I also don't believe that 500 some square feet is very big for too many people, and it also seems that there aren't very many windows, and as we heard, not very many balconies. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gail Mona.
Good evening. I'm a 27-year resident of Portola Hills, and the people that moved into our community.
Sorry, your name?
Gail Mona.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I thought it was announced when I came.
It's announced, but you have to say it, just so Peggy sometimes says
I'm
it.
Gail Mona. I live in Portola Hills. And so Portola Hills is a semi-rural residential community. The people that moved into our community deliberately moved into it because we're seated at the foothills of the Santa Ana Mountains, and it's not congested. And the proposed building that you all are considering tonight is not a match in terms of size, design, scope, nor function to our community. It doesn't match. And placing it at the gateway, the main entryway to our community, will constitute a permanent blight, an eyesore to our community. I'm asking you, please, change the design of it. If you're inclined to go forward with this, please change the design, make it less ugly, and if you're going to approve it, also the parking situation is not tenable. Traditionally, the builders in Portola Hills did not give us enough parking with the homes already, and we've got street congestion as it is. We don't need more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have no more speakers. We do have another speaker. Let's, if you could bring your cards here, please, at this time. Sorry, could you bring your cards up, everybody, at this time? Tim Hughes.
My name is Tim Hughes. I live at 22571 Charwood Circle, Lake Forest, California. It's been quite a while since I've been here. Good to see you all. I actually am speaking in opposition to the proposal here this evening. I was on the Planning Commission at the time that this came before the city and when it received its initial approval. And there was a tremendous amount of discussion regarding building heights, regarding parking at that time, general layout. And there were concessions made allowing it to get to a height, as I recall, and again, this goes back a few years, but 35 feet, as I recall, was the approved height for the project. It looks like now they're asking for 45 feet. Actually, 61 feet, I think. So that's almost 50% larger than what it was originally approved at. And based on what I see with the parking, it appears to be grossly underparked, similar to something that was just recently done in what was previously referred to as an auto park here in our auto center here in Lake Forest, where we allowed a project to go in and be grossly overparked or underparked. And parking, as you heard from some of the other residents, is a tremendous problem within our community as a whole. This area in particular, because there will be no other options for parking around this project. So I think you need to give very serious consideration to the parking requirements and also a careful review in consideration to the request for the dramatic increase in the height. I don't think it's appropriate for this location or this use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Terry Anderson.
Good evening. Terry Anderson, 22111 Pheasant Street, Lake Forest. I, too, am a former planning commissioner, as I'm sure most all of you know, Jerry in particular, and am intimately familiar with this project. I'm not going to belabor the points that have already been spoken on, but I will point out a typo that's in the report, Gail. On page 16 of 18, under harmful effects, there seems to be the last line of that element doesn't seem to make sense. It will significant views or have other harmful effects to the neighborhood. I'm not quite sure what that means, so you might want to fix that typo. And that's not important to the issue, but I might be known for those things. I'd rather speak to what you really have before you as a planning commission, which is what you have the most control over, which is working with the community, working with the neighbors of Portola Hills, and creating a product that you can shape in some way to make it a viable and beautiful element for our community as well as for Portola Hills. You've got a blank slate before you in Portola Hills with all this new development, and you have a neighborhood that has felt, to put it mildly, slighted by the community, starting with the annexation of the area, following up with the new development that's going on, which the former Planning Commission spent a great deal of time trying to patch hard feelings with, and I think we were pretty successful with that. But then you also have the issue with the latest thing with Saddleback Ranch Road. So listening to the residents there, hearing them say, we don't think this is a very pretty building, is something that you have the power to fix. What was originally presented to us was not what we see today. It was something that was going to be... The height limit is something that's very difficult to quantify because feet is allowed in that area. But we do see a developer here who's asking to go all the way to 61 feet with one of the elements, even though it's a small element on the property. I, as a resident and as a citizen, don't think that that's necessary. I'm sure that there are ways that they can live within the confines of what our ordinances permit. Certainly, if they were to add more interest to their building, to make it a more beautiful building, and perhaps add some of the elements that Mr. Herzberg suggested with additional balconies so that the residents would have more viewing space and more living space. Those are all things that will make the building a better building for the community. So that would be my suggestion to you as a Planning Commission, that you think about how this building is going to interface not only with our community, but with the residents up there, and how can you create a product that everyone can live with. Thank you.
Thank you. One more.
David Carter.
I'm David Carter. I'm a 35-year resident of the city of Lake Forest, living at 21501 Moores Bay. I also was on the Planning Commission in 2013 when we initially looked at this. My only concern, well, there's two. This is the first building that's going to go up there. You set precedent, okay? And believe me, the precedent that is set is going to set the tone for the rest of the structures that go up there. It reminds me when we were looking at the Holiday Inn, which is a rather large building that we had, and initially when we saw it, we saw the value in the building. I see the value in this building. But there were architectural things that just didn't lend itself to what it was. And here you set the tone. So you're going to set the bar for what the rest of the structures will be in that particular area. And I would suggest an enhancement of the exterior fascia of it, possibly balconies, things of that nature. You give it a little more architectural value. The other concern I have, the 57 parking spots are adequate for the residents, but remember you're putting retail below. All of us want retail to be successful. And if it is successful, you have to take into consideration where are the people who are coming to those retail services, where will they park?
I'm going to just interrupt you. You might have missed that the people that go to those residences go through a gate, and
Okay,
retail has separate parking.
So this will be a gated, it's not going to
So
be
now
open.
you only have one issue. Good.
Okay, okay, that's valid, that's valid. Once again, I would really take in serious consideration just the architectural structure that you're putting up. 35 feet or 45 feet, four-story building is extremely large. It will set the tone. You're going to get overwhelmed by what the size of this area potentially will become. So that's my areas of concern. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. George Blake.
I'm George Blake. I lived in Portola Hills for 29 years. I brought the pictures up for one plain and simple reason. That building is flat. It has no setbacks, nothing that looks anything like these. These are buildings that are set in other areas that are senior housing or accommodated housing for, multiple families. None of these buildings has that kind of facade on it. I think that you're going to, and as he said, you're setting a precedent for what it's going to look like. And I think you need to take a really good look at that building and what it looks like. We've gone through the same thing where I have a business in Dana Point where they're doing the same thing, and they're now reviewing the setbacks. A flat building is not architecturally beautiful. Painting it 3 different colors does not work. You have to have some kind of setbacks. Porches can help. Patios can help. But the pictures were here for a reason. To cut them off, I don't think that, that's the correct thing to do. So, parking in the building, the height, there's rules, variances are set, variances are a change from the norm. The norm was set. The norm is what is supposed to be. A variance is a change. Don't change.
Thank you. Is that it?
To have the opportunity to respond to some of the comments if you would like to hear from us.
We would like to hear from you.
Okay.
Right now.
All right. Well, on the parking issue, just to clarify, there are 61 parking spaces on the residential side. Again, that is only access through the gates, so the only people that have access to the residential parking area are the residents of the building and their guests and the manager that lives there. On the issue of residents having more than one car, I think we covered this. However, I'm certainly willing to accept some kind of condition that says that the operator has to ensure that future residents are only allowed to have one car maximum. That would be a fine condition. I don't think there's going to be any issue with enforcing that. On the retail side, we're offering 57 parking spaces when the code only requires us to provide 50. So we're providing 7 more spaces than we're required, which is basically 14% above the code. On the building articulation, I think those comments are simply wrong. I think it's very clear from the site development permit application and the different elevations that are included in that there's actually very good articulation. We've included archways, we've included setbacks. The tower element, as you can see from the different vignettes that are on the screen, is actually really important in distinguishing the building, because otherwise it kind of does look like just your typical Hampton, maybe, from afar, from a distance, because the tower really brings the overall context of the building into perspective. So I think the tower element, yes, we're exceeding the height limit as defined in the area plan, and by the way, as discussed in detail at multiple hearings, that this building would be sort of almost an iconic component of the project, and it would be bigger, and it would have more stringent architectural standards applied to it than the rest of the project, which is predominantly resident, well, is essentially all residential. But this building is intended to set the tone for the entry into the community, this building as well as the 5-acre park. And what's really great is that the 5-acre park is this big open area of parkland that's going to have all these neat facilities that the city is now in the process of designing. And then you're going to have this really beautiful, early Santa Barbara, old Santa Barbara style building right across the street that has this very inviting feel to it because it's residentially based, predominantly a residential building, but it also has the commercial component which will attract the people from the park. And so you're going to get this great interaction. I understand the concerns of the community. We understand the concerns of the community. There are no buildings like this in the community, and there in Portola Hills there are no buildings up there like this at all. However, this will be the only building in the project like this, and everything else will essentially resemble what's been built in Portola Hills over the last 20 years. So those are my responses to the comments. If there's any other specific comments that were raised by the public that you would like us to respond to, we're here to do so.
I'd also like to add that if you'd like to speak to the architect who came, we've been very happy with this building. We thought it was a very nice touch. We liked the retail especially. The glass and kind of the interactive there's going to be between inside and outside on it seemed nice. But if you guys would like to talk to our architect about some of their thoughts and kind of where he came from on the design side of this, we were more than happy to make him available.
Sure. Please, I should say.
So should I respond, or do you guys want to ask questions?
Well, why don't you respond, and we'll maybe
Okay.
ask questions.
Okay. There's been a few issues that were raised. The balcony. Balconies, obviously architecture process. And so we're going through the process of the needs of the community, the needs of the developer, and then looking at the building and saying, well, what can we really effectively do here and do in a good way? And when we did that, the process led us to really trying to provide a really elegant, nice outdoor community balcony that's situated just above the retail, that overlooks the park, that provides a very generous, nice space for the residents to use, all the residents have access to that space. They can put tables out there, umbrellas, it can be lit with soft cafe lights, it's above the retail and above a potential cafe, so it has access to the pedestrian activity there. It overlooks the park, and like the residents said, it has just a tremendous view. So it really is an amenity for the residents, and because this is an affordable housing project, there are cost constraints. This really was the best option for them. It will be a very nice space for them. So that really was one of the decisions that we made through that process. As far as the tower really is. So one of the residents said she spent some time in Europe, which is fantastic. It's a wonderful place, really great old buildings, and in those communities they have a center of town. And so looking at the area plan, what really was the vision for this is the community as a node, as a point where people can come, walk from the park, spend time, and this really does focus on that. So this tower element really is about creating a node, a focal point, and it appeals to the retail as well. So that was the process there. So those are just, and as far as the architecture, the plan does specify several styles that are preferred. So we went with the early Santa Barbara style. And being from San Diego, I'm a fan of Irving Gill, who is an early architect there, who did some really beautiful work that took what was traditional architecture into kind of the next step. And so really we kind of drew on Irving Gill and looked to the area plan to get some architectural feedback. And what we believe we produced was a nice representation of early Santa Barbara with some modern updates. So.
Does anybody have any particular questions of our architecture? I have a related question. I'm not sure if you would answer it. Sure. It was with regards to the balconies. Would adding balconies prohibit this cost-wise for being a affordable project?
When we started looking at the idea of balconies, which was something that we have talked, we came into if you add a balcony to every room, we thought that actually made the building look worse. And so then you started looking at...
Sorry, worse in what way?
It becomes more monotonous, because now you've just got a different line across every building if you've got a balcony on every one. The affordable housing developer, Chelsea, when we started talking to them about, all right, well, if we had a couple of balconies, they started getting into the problems of the haves and the have-nots. Now you've got all of them at the same price, but you've got some people who get a balcony and some people who don't. The other problem that
Are they all at the same price?
Yes. The other problem that they brought up that they have had with balconies is they have trouble controlling what's out on the balcony. So you get people hanging stuff over the balconies, you get people putting storage out on the balconies, and then it becomes an eyesore issue. So that's why they also wanted to focus on community gatherings. So instead of having individual balconies on select units, we did move over and have the large community balcony that overlooks the park and has views down to the ocean. We also there is some relief in the building that gives the idea of Juliet balconies. I believe it's on the 3rd floor, where the retail steps back and it looks like it's a step-out balcony. It's not, because of the issues that I brought up of balconies. But then we also have some Juliet balconies putting through. So we tried to do some things on it, but there were a couple of reasons that we did stay away from the balconies on individual units.
Thank you. Tom?
So if we presume that you need to do something else to architecturally enhance the building, what other options do you have besides balconies that are within the cost range that you have to live within?
Well, so the area plan outlines what they prefer for early Santa Barbara style, and so we provided those. And so really, it's you can always add more things. Does that actually help it architecturally? Not necessarily. We feel like this is a very elegant building. We have. With the early Santa Barbara, it's really not about how much ornamentation. It's about tasteful and well-placed ornamentation, and we feel like we have done that here. The balconies, we do have Juliet balconies, which, although they're not a walkout balcony, do provide some opportunities for ventilation, for engagement with the outside.
Well, it's interesting. A couple of the views that you look at, it looks like a giant monolith of a building sitting in a parking lot, and that's about it. And I don't know how you get around that. I mean, that's one of the things as I keep looking at it. I can understand why the residents are fussing. It's this giant 4-story monolith, and it's sitting in the middle of a parking lot. And yeah, it's sitting 22 feet under the roadway, but it's still a giant 4-story monolith. Well, I don't know. The amount of landscaping around it doesn't really help it a lot either.
Okay. So it is 4 stories. It is a 4-story building. The windows, there are several reliefs in the elevation. When it's monolithic, these reliefs are anywhere from a foot to 2 feet, which I do many buildings, and this is a generous setback in the building facade. I mean, we're using no colors to offset and create fake planes. It's inauthentic and it doesn't really work. We haven't done that. What you see is a white building. It's understated. It's simple for a reason. And that's because it'll age gracefully. The vegetation will grow up. There'll be bougainvillea. The trees will it will fit into the community, and that was intentional. And there are on the retail side, we have a rendering up here. You can see there are several setbacks in the elevation, up to 5 feet in 2 different places. We really tried to break up that facade and provide opportunities for different form. There's an arcade that you actually see this arched arcade. So I would disagree, particularly on the retail side. I think there are plenty of opportunities in architecture and interest. So,
Amanda, might you turn that around this way? I give it. Would you mind just putting it in front of the podium here? I think the audience has had a view at it for a while.
Yeah, and I would like to point out for the developer really, I feel like has.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. The developer really has stepped up to provide some interesting retail space. Being a low-income project, there are financial constraints on a project like this, but we've been able to provide a 2-story arched facade along the storefront there. It's a deep recess. It's a very nice facade. It's going to be a very interesting retail space, and they were able to provide that on a project that has a conservative budget. So I think that was actually a really great move on their part. I think that was a nice retail space. Again, that's a 2.5 feet recess there on the storefront. So again, there's I think a lot of relief there. So.
I have a question. One of the former planning commissioners, chairman a number of years, and man, I have deep respect for. I have deep respect for all 3 of them that are here tonight. Mentioned that the original approval, there was an indication that maybe there would be the center with a 2nd-story housing on top of that. How did we go from that to what's proposed here tonight?
Perhaps I could answer that question. Again, we talked about the area plan, a series of approvals, so we looked at maps and the area plan that was so rich in detail. And so the area plan is very specific about the multifamily residential development standards and the standards for the mixed-use center. And the height limit is 45 feet. It was never lower. and the parking is also specified as well. So from the documents that we have and the approval that we moved through, there wasn't a change. These are the development standards. As you recall, the area plan approves the planning areas, the number of units, the subdivision, and so this level of planning and the architectural standards that are here were approved by the Planning Commission and recommended and approved by the City Council.
Thank you.
And if I may, I misspoke in my presentation. The area plan was approved in 2013, not 2008.
And the decision to go with this project to affordable housing, was that back in 2008, 2013, or was that just recently?
All of the projects within the OSA had a requirement to provide affordable housing. They did so in various manners. In the larger projects, we had, for those projects, an affordable housing implementation plan. That was also included as part of the development agreement and the AHIP itself. That set forth the number of units and the income levels of the units. They had a formula that they needed to meet, and they could do this in a variety of ways. We had different criteria, different points. If you provided deep levels of affordability and provided affordability for seniors, you had more points. And so through the development agreement and those approvals, the 57 affordable housing units, that's where you'll find the genesis of that.
Again, I have a question, and they've got a request for variance to go from 45 feet max height to 61 feet on this project. Is that our understanding?
It's not a variance. As you'll recall, a variance has very specific criteria and findings that have to be made, and it can't be a grant of special privilege. This is an alternative development standard, and our criteria is different. It's granted for a reason, for design. The criteria is all stated in your staff report, but it's not a variance. It's a different concept. The findings are different, but you do have to find that it fits in and it is serving, that it's a worthy design solution, but it's not a variance.
Thank you for that clarification.
You could probably sit down.
Okay.
Okay, since we have no more speakers, if you need to fill out another card, but I can't. You need to come to the podium, and I would, of course, allow you to ask a question, because you have been very involved in this.
Gail, did we ever discuss 57 units of affordable housing at that spot in 2013? At that spot?
Yes.
At that very spot?
Yes, and you'll see it in the area plan. It says mixed use. It's there.
I have absolutely no memory.
Okay.
So I mean, that's where, and most people on the Hill have no memory. And we came to a lot of planning commission meetings. That's my question. I just want you to understand, there were a lot of people highly involved in this process. We came to multiple meetings, and I have no memory. I know that 57 units, or units of affordable housing, were going to be spread out. What I remember were granny units and other things, but no one discussed over that retail, at that spot that I have a personal memory of, 57 units of affordable housing. And I'm just going to stand by it. It may be somewhere buried in the plan, but I have no memory of a discussion. I don't even, all I remember is a second story of retail above some kind of living units. That's where we left it. And that's why we're upset.
I get it. Thank you for expressing your concerns. We really appreciate it. Okay, so if there's no other speakers, maybe one more question.
Sure that you
maybe just state your name again, because we're being recorded. Yeah.
Right. Hi, camera. Just a quick clarification. In your package on page 14 of 18,
another typo?
No typos.
Okay, good.
It talks about the height limit of being 45 feet, but also talks about the allowance for 10 more feet to be added to certain elements to the building. But your applicant is asking for almost 16 feet more. And what it allowed, this extra 10 feet is there for certain architectural elements like chimneys and elevator shafts. And so I need to understand, why do we need that additional footage on top of this?
I'm going to let Scott come up and talk about that one more time.
Very good.
Thank you.
So, just to clarify, I'm Scott Malloy with Baldwin & Sons, the applicant. Just to clarify, the building is designed as a 45-foot high building. The tower element, which we've been talking about, is 16 feet above that. That's that central tower element that you see that's relatively, in terms of the overall scale of the building, is not very significant. And we are requesting a deviation to go above the 10-foot threshold above the 45-foot height limit. So we're requesting a deviation, which we provided a justification letter to the city to justify the deviation. And we went through this same process with the area plan for a certain neighborhood in the project where we are basically doing what is a single-family product on a shared driveway. We also went through a deviation process with our area plan and our tentative map approval and provided justification for that, and the Planning Commission and City Council accepted that at that point. So that's, we're not just wholesale, exceeding the height limit without justification. We're following the city's process. It's for a very specific element of the building, and we provided a justification letter to exceed it.
And where are you going 51 feet?
It's just the tower element, and
I thought that was 61.
Right. It's 16 feet above the 45-foot height limit, so that's 61 feet for that tower element. But the rest of the building is designed at 45 feet.
Okay.
If I could just echo what Mr. Malloy is saying. So the building height limit is 45 feet, and the standards do allow for architectural projections to be at 55. So they are requesting to go an additional 6.
Additional 6 feet.
Additional
yeah,
6.
above that threshold. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had made your tower at 55 feet, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Well, I think you'd still be getting feedback from the community about the overall size and scale of the building. But
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But we are requesting a deviation for the tower element. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I'd just like to give you a little background on the tower. I'm going to blame my architect for this because we've been actually trying to push the tower height down a little bit. They have insisted that they wanted it for the architectural feature of the building. So the design, the height of that tower is purely for the aesthetics of the building. That's where that's come from, and that's kind of been the background on why that's been fought to stay at that height.
Why did you want to lower it?
Slightly cheaper to build it lower. But we've listened to our architect.
Architect says, no.
So,
I told them, again, we're developers. We have an eye for what we think looks good, but there's a reason we pay our architects, and it's because they have a better eye for what looks good. And we focused on this, and I think one of our first planning comments we got back on our first submittal of this SGP had to do with the tower and kind of what the tower should look like and the tower elements, because that is something that's detailed in the area plan. So the tower was an important element, we felt, architecturally, and that's why it's at the height it's at.
So what's in the tower at the very top? I mean, is it usable space?
Rapunzel.
So there's basically nothing in this?
It isn't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it is an architectural feature. Absolutely.
I'm Ed Leonard. I'm with AVRP, the architect. Yes, this is it's an architectural feature. This was a very intentional design decision by the architect to provide this this tower. They definitely have questioned us, but as professionals, we've looked at the proportions of the building, and it's an important architectural element. We have a very long building that if you don't begin to break it up with formal shifts and towers and things of this nature, begin to feel like a flat building. And we've heard a lot about that tonight. And what we have here is this is not a flat building. And the reason is because we've provided architectural relief, a tower that divides what is a long blank wall into two distinct elements. And it uses the tower to really accent what is a goal of the community, which is to create a focal point for this neighborhood. And it does that, and it does that in a very traditional way. In Europe, it was the clock tower. And here in the Mission style in Santa Barbara, it's a tower. It's that religious kind of iconic reference, but it's just very appropriate for the area. It's very appropriate for the building, the facade. It just helps break that up. So it was intentional, and we have fought the developer for this because we feel it's an important element So again, it doesn't serve a specific function, and doesn't hide anything. It's purely for the aesthetic reason. So.
Thank you. Mark, did you have any more questions? Anybody else have any more questions? And one more speaker. Kimberly Alford.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Alford, Lake Forest resident, Portola Hills. And as I was sitting here thinking about it some more, as I said earlier, I'm not opposed at all to having senior living there, but I am opposed to the 4-story building. And I don't quite understand the reason for all of the retail down below. And especially since the retail isn't huge spaces, we're going to get a lot of traffic coming in if you have things like dry cleaners or alterations, or even little coffee shops, which we have tons already in this city. I don't understand why the building can't be lowered by 2 stories, or, you make it 2 stories or even 3 stories, which also sounds very high, and you have less retail down on the bottom, and maybe you have something more on the corners of this building. You can still have a little bit of a tower idea in the center, architecturally, but I just don't understand why it has to be such a tall building for that area. And as we heard earlier, this is setting the precedence for who knows what else that's coming in. Thank you.
Is that it, Peggy? Thank you. All right, one more.
Hello, my name is Adam Weaver, and from Portola Hills. One of the questions that I really have about the project is the retail space that's up there. As Ms. Alford just touched on, I have a concern that you're either not going to draw the types of tenants you want, or you're not going to be able to draw any tenants at all. And one example that I've always not liked the concept of the retail up there, because one example, if you look at where, say Liquor on the Rocks is, if you know where that's at off of El Toro, there's a lot of vacant buildings and space that's in there. And one thing that I don't want to see happen with Portola Hills is, let's say you have this nice building, or this building, however you want to describe it, but you have no tenants to fill the commercial space that's being provided there. I mean, to me, that just sounds like a very sad situation. I wouldn't be opposed to a coffee shop there, but do I want a liquor store there? Probably not. Do we need a dry cleaner there? Probably not. So I just have a real big concern with the retail space up there. And also, too, just regarding, kind of when I look at this building, it sounds like the cost constraint is a real big, it's a real big constraint. The developer can't really, do what they would want to do to make this, beautiful building, especially being that it's in the gateway of Portola Hills. I think that's pretty important. So I would be interested to kind of get the developer's thoughts about, the usage of landscaping to maybe, mask some of the what you can't do because of a constrained budget, what you could do with landscaping to really maybe possibly enhance the beauty of this building. Because one of the main things I like about Portola Hills is the landscaping and just the natural California native plants that's up there. So I just don't want to see something that's out of place. And then also if it could be placed lower down from the street, that might be a possible solution as far as not having it, really dominate the entrance as you come up to Portola Hills. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Peggy. No more? For discussion. Tom?
based on what I'm hearing, I'm not sure that this project is going to fit very well with the residents of Portola Hills. I have a daughter that lives up there, and she's quite picky about what goes in up there, and she complains to me bitterly about the road and some of the other things that have happened there. This building is huge for the site that it sits on. It is a monster for the size of the lot that it sits on. And I don't know if you're constrained financially to the 57 residents, because that's what it takes to be able to fund the building to keep it going. Everyone else is, but I think, to me, the building's too big. It just doesn't fit. And the more I look at it, the more concerned I get as to what you could do to fix it. On the other hand, you've invested quite a bit of effort into it to get it this far, but I think that maybe you need to go back and rethink it some more, because I think you're going to get a lot of opposition going forward. I have serious doubts it'll get out of the City Council the way it's sitting right now. So I guess my recommendation is you take it back and look at it some more and bring us back another idea, because right now this one doesn't appear to be working.
Okay. Well, I would like to add something here. From what I understand, and Gail, maybe you can walk me through this. We're at 57 units because that's what our agreement is with the developer. Is that correct?
Yes, 57 units is the in the Affordable Housing Implementation Plan that's been approved for the project by the council, and it's also contained within the development agreement. So 57 units of affordable housing. They also have 18 other units of affordable housing on the northwest and northeast portions. Those are the second units that they'll be building, and those two components are the affordable housing requirement for this project.
So I look at this as the City of Lake Forest has a good faith agreement with our developer that we're going to find an agreement on these 57 units in this particular area. Excuse me, but this is now, yeah, you got it right. So the developer has come up with putting these 57 units in this particular spot because maybe they do not want to put 10 units here and 10 units there and 10 units there, and you've got affordable housing all over the place. I think what we need to understand is with affordable housing, which is not something that we just pull out of the pie in the sky and say, oh, let's put in affordable housing, and we're mandated to put in affordable housing. And it's every portion of the City of Lake Forest will have affordable housing, and you put in a new area, and it's going to, we need to share it all. Do we have other areas of affordable housing in the city? Yes, we do. And to say that, oh, because we're Portola, we are exempt from that, I don't think we can. I don't think that's our agreement. And I know you're saying that you're not exempt, you don't like the height, you don't like it all, but I happen to like the building. I think it's, given what the constraints would be financially for affordable housing, I look at other cities and other affordable housing, and that's blight. This is not blight. This is an architect who's come up with a plan that fits within what we've asked them to do, and I see setbacks, I see arches. Is it what we would really love? No, we'd all like to live in mansions, but we don't, and we all like to live in little cul-de-sacs, or we'd all like to live in cute apartments, whatever it is that we want to live in, but we need to provide affordable housing. And so I don't really see what your opposition to the building is, Tom, but that's, we're always going to have different opinions.
Chair Fuentes, if I may, Planning Commissioners. One item I just wanted to elaborate on is you termed it a good faith agreement with the developer. This was a development agreement as approved by the council. A development agreement is unique in that it gives the developer vested rights in the entitlements, one of the entitlements being the area plan. So they have a vested right to be able to proceed pursuant to the area plan, and in exchange they have given the city public benefits. So I just want to elaborate a little bit more on kind of the background of the entitlements and then how the development agreement actually works.
So those 57 units in that particular, on that particular lot, is that, maybe expand on that a little bit more as to where why we decided that those 57 units would go in that lot.
Okay, the location and the layout of the project is really focused in the area plan and the tentative maps that have been approved again by the Planning Commission and the City Council. When we looked at the subdivision maps for this area, a majority of the property is single-family detached. So we actually have approval of the exact layout of all of the lots. And on top of that, we have, of course, the area plan that provides the architectural detail, all of the setbacks and the development agreements. So we have a very good idea, certainly, of what the single-family components are, because they each sit on their own lot. So when we look at the area plan, there's two areas. There is a multifamily component that sits just behind this, and the mixed-use site. So they're talked about in the area plan. Again, they're talked about in the Affordable Housing Implementation Plan. The development standards are given. We just haven't seen this. We haven't seen the architecture. That's really the purpose of tonight's public hearing. We know what kind of architectural styles the area plan contemplated. We have a master landscape plan. We know it's 57 affordable units in this location as you're coming into the project. The 10,000 square feet of commercial use is also in the area plan, and we spent a lot of time talking with the neighborhood about the pros and cons. At one point in the development of the project, the square footage of the retail was significantly reduced. It was cut down by about 75%. But the 10,000 square foot of retail is here in the area plan, the location of the multifamily, the mixed use, and that's what we have. This is our first opportunity to see what it looks like, to see its scale, to see how it complies with the development standards that we have in here.
So we've been asked by residents to look at this, and they don't like the look at it. They don't like the height of it. What is our what can we do to make any changes? And I want to kind of go back and say, I understand that a lot of the people that have spoken tonight are surprised at it because they didn't realize we had gotten to this point. And so, but I think we did get to this point, and it has been approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council prior. So now we're at this point. What is it that we could or cannot do to make any changes?
Chair Fuentes and Planning Commissioners, the Planning Commissioners are, again, bound by the development agreement, the area plan, the plan community standards, regulations, and so the developer is hemmed in by those type of regulations. However, there is, this document, for example, it provides old Santa Barbara architecture and features. So the Planning Commission can take a look at these features, compare it to the policies and language in the area plan and say, do these architectural features fit these type of architectural, requirements? This what is envisioned, and there's actually renderings and photos within this area plan that kind of give an example. So when you hear about the architect saying, hey, we're looking at this area plan and we're trying to build within the confines of this document for which the developer has a vested right to, develop the project according to, this is what the commission is looking at. Did the developer meet these requirements? Is the developer meeting these standards? Have they deviated? And so that is up to the commission to kind of discretionarily take a look at.
If I could add on to what the attorney is reminding us, that the area plan actually includes a number of different architectural styles that can be built throughout the project. So what we're looking at, the architect has told us Old Santa Barbara. There are other styles that are in the area plan, Spanish Revival, Italiante, European estate, the Monterey style. So there are other styles whose character is different than what has been described as this classically elegant old Santa Barbara style. So it's certainly within your purview to look through and to comment on the design and the character and the level of detail on the project.
But we can't increase the square footage of the project. We could say reduce the size of it, spread it out so it's not so tall. I mean, is that within our?
Well, the height limit for the project, as stated in the area plan, is 45 feet, and an architectural feature could be 55 feet. If they're proposing a deviation, you can certainly look at that. But no, you can't say, I only want to see 20 units here, and they could all only single story. They have a vested right to 57 units in the mixed-use area with a height limit of 45 feet and 55 for a architectural feature. But again, you do have design purview, and any alternative development standard that they put forth, you can certainly look at that.
Okay, so we have some buttons going.
I think my question is, can you make the building go back to 45 feet and still get your 57 units in there? And make it look good? I'm just
The building is 45 feet tall. And in terms of the scale of the building, the units, the individual units, the 57 affordable units and the manager unit, I believe they're about 530 square feet. 525. So that's an individual single, one-bedroom unit. That's pretty small. So that's about as small as you get. So times that by 58. So we've kind of minimized the size of the unit, each individual residential unit, and then we're providing the 10,000 square feet of retail, no more, no less, per our requirements in our development agreement. So the building size is what it is, and we do have a vested right, per the area plan, to go up to 45 feet. So whether we spread it out and make it shorter, or we squish it and we can't make it any taller, that's the size of the building is what it is.
I'm not questioning the size of the building. I don't think you can build it in much less than that square footage. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to do is find out if there's a way to make it look not quite so architecturally massive. Can you play with the size of it? Can you locate it farther back on the property, move the parking farther or a different place? What other options do you have?
We actually
that might satisfy some of this opposition that we're hearing.
Yeah, we actually pushed the building all the way to the back of the property as far as we could, but still be able to get, a row of basically, a double loaded drive aisle of parking for the residential in the back.
You mean originally it was right up front?
Originally, in the area plan, we had an L-shaped building with a 55-foot high tower element, and this is in the area plan exhibits, up near the intersection. So we've pushed the whole building as far back into that space as we can, however, still being able to provide residential parking behind the building. So the building is as far back as it can be pushed away from the intersection, and to the section of the site that is the lowest below Glen Ranch Road, the furthest below Glen Ranch Road.
And there'd be no way to lower the grade, keep the building the same way, and just lower the building so that. I mean, that would be fairly impractical.
At this point in the process, that building, that site is about as low as it can go without completely unraveling the tentative map and the grading plan and all that other work. So,
I have a couple of questions here. Have you guys done any interviewing, about, because people have mentioned the retail, their concern over the retail. Have you done anything with various retailers that might go in there?
Yeah, I think Nick can answer that question best, but the answer is yes.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, right at the beginning, we talked about the iterations that were given, and you gave us the comment that the landscaping that's represented there was basically fully grown. So right from that, I would think that one of the things we can do would be to go for more mature landscaping. I know it's more expensive, I get that. But I think, I'm the only one that's on this commission that was here 3 years ago. And I'm glad that 3 of the other 4 commissioners are in attendance here tonight, and Mr. Herzberg, because we spent a lot of time, as you all know, working with the community to get to where we are tonight. So one of the things I want to have some discussion about and get some definitive commitments about is improving the maturity of the landscaping that would go in there. So I'm just kind of giving you a little heads up. So let's hear about the retail.
Yeah, we have brought on a retail broker that's helping us look for tenants for the space. They put a sign out on the site. Just this morning, I approved the marketing material that they're going to start to pass out around the community and through their networks that they go through. So we are looking for these. We have a website for Portola Oaks. We did get one person who sent us an email through the website saying, hey, I'm not in this business, I have another job, but I've always wanted to open a coffee shop, and this is the kind of place where I'd want to be. And this is somebody who lives up in Portola Oaks, and so we've been in contact with her. So we are looking for that. It is early in the process. Right now, we're looking at likely breaking ground if this project were approved in the June-July timeframe, and it'd be completed about a year later. So we're a little ahead of the curve at this point to get people signed up, but we are working on it because we do want to have options and we want quality uses. I mean, we are, as the developer, going to be the owner of the retail space. Okay. So we want it to be successful. And one of the things with the landscaping, especially once you get into the project, we did spread some of the landscape out so that you do get views to the retail. So you get looks into and you can see what's there. The landscaping in front of the building, when we worked with staff, we wanted to create a plaza area out front so people can gather, people can come from the park. This is supposed to be the center of the community. When you look at it on the map, it is geographically right in the middle, and this is supposed to be a place for people to gather, for people to meet, and for people to enjoy the day. So those are things that we have looked at, and there are reasons for everything. I'm a little disappointed here tonight that there is such opposition to the architecture of it. I mean, I can always understand people with height and things like that, because that's always an issue. When we stuck with the area plan, the place we are doing the deviation is really driven by our architect and what he thought would make the building look better. And we were very excited about this building. We did things like making the first 2 floors appear to look more like one floor, so it kind of softens that to really make the retail pop. This was something we were pretty excited about, so it is a little disappointing here. But we have been working to try to make this as nice as possible. We have a vested interest. We are the owner of the land on the other side of Glen Ranch Road. We are selling homes there. This is the gateway to our project as well, so we have a vested interest in this. It's not like this is something we're building this one piece and we're walking away. We're committed on this, and so we've been happy with it. We've been happy with what our architects came up with. We've been happy with our working with staff and the direction we went with the building to develop it. So we're looking to make a nice project. We want it to be kind of the entry to the community.
I can see that you are working hard at this, and I think you're wise to be trying to be ahead of the curve to find out the retail side of that, because that is something you want to make sure. And I get the idea that you want this to be a walkable neighborhood kind of an environment. People will drive and stop on their way, either coming down off of Santiago Canyon or coming across, even from Rancho, you come across Live Oak Canyon, cutting through, whatever you're doing, you're going to get some people that are going to stop. But I see this as, and I think it's what it was intended to be, as a walkable community type of environment where people will come, particularly on the weekends, and you'll have little eateries in there. You'll have places, we'll leave the name brands out, but there are those attractive spots that people congregate to. I mean, they're addicted to them every weekend. I mean, rain, shine, whatever. That's where they go to meet their friends, and they hang there for 1, 2, 3 hours sometimes. So I see that happening, especially with the park. I get what you're trying to accomplish here. Was there any other than the Santa Barbara style? Were there any other iterations of design, or this was one you guys picked, and this is what we've got in front of us?
No, there were other iterations. We did look at other things. We actually had a separate architect in the first round of this, our first submittal of the project. And it was just, it didn't have the pop that we wanted. It was a much more monolithic building. Staff can attest to that. And so, we have switched architects. And again, we got it to a place where we're quite happy. I've been through numerous planning commission meetings before in various jurisdictions. And some things, there are things that worry me coming into a hearing. But really, the look of this building wasn't something that concerned me at all. So again, it is a little bit on the disappointing side that we're getting this feedback, but I think it's a great building. I think it's a good location for it. As Scott said, we took some planning efforts to make sure it was set as well as possible, pushing it back, separating the parking between the residential and the retail. Just a lot of things that were forward-thinking on the project to make it look as nice as we could. Because again, we're going to own the base of this, the retail. We want that retail to be successful. We have that vested interest, and it is the entry to our project where we are selling homes, and that's always of concern for us. It is our marketing corridor.
Okay. Thank you for your answers.
If I could I just wanted to address your concern about the landscaping. The specimen coast live oak trees will be very mature. The ones that go in there, you can see them here in the vignette. Those will go in at the corner of the site behind the community signage, the community monument sign there. Yeah, you can see them a little bit off to the right there. The issue about a plant mature trees is, I agree with you. It's like, hey, let's get the mature trees in there now so it's more. Though is that the more mature the tree is when you transplant it, the more likely it is to go through shock and then it starts growing. So what we've found as developers is that it's better to kind of go with something that's a little bit of a younger tree and it looks smaller initially, but we're pretty diligent about making sure we get healthy specimen trees when we select trees, and then making sure that the soil conditions where the tree is being planted are conducive to growth, and within a couple of years that same smaller tree now looks like that mature tree that you could have planted, but you're not going to have the issue with stunting the growth of the tree. So there's kind of a delicate balance there.
I appreciate that. We just don't want to go undersize.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that we don't do that. I mean, I think the staff can work with us on the landscape and irrigation plans to ensure that. So.
That's somebody else's, expertise.
Right.
Right.
Does anybody else have any more questions, any more comments about the project and what we can or cannot do with it?
Gail, I know we were talking about regarding the parking and one car per unit. Can we check and see if that's already in place, or at least have that in the thing that we can at least make sure that one, if they have, it's just one car per unit or something like that?
Yes, I believe the applicant stated that he would be willing to accept a condition of approval that they're limited to one car per unit. Is that correct? So we could add that as a condition of approval, if that's what you're asking, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for the residential portion.
What's going to prevent a resident with two cars from parking in the public parking out front and taking up those spaces?
Yes, we want that parking for our retail. We want our retail to be successful, so we are going to prevent that from happening.
So you'll have a security service or something that'll...
We'll do what we need to do. We haven't determined what that will be at this point, but again, we have a vested interest in it. We are going to own that retail. We want that retail to be successful, and as I think a couple members of the community have said, as South staff has said, there's an importance to parking in successful retail.
Some of the residents have commented on the fact that they're concerned about how it's going to look as you drive up Glen Ranch Road and Saddleback Ranch Road. Is there anything you can do with the landscaping to make sure that that monolithic building is disguised as much as possible from the street, better than what you have here? Anything? I mean, yeah, you can plant trees, but I sense one of the comments is that they don't want that giant monolith to all of a sudden appear out of nowhere, and that's the only thing anybody thinks about the community.
Yeah. See, I mean, and this is just the difference in perspective. I don't see it as a giant monolith that is that problem. We are trying to landscape it. I mean, we want our projects to look great, so we are doing landscaping. We've got a very qualified landscape architect from the Orange County area here on it to make it look great. And I mean, I think as you see here, even with, if you imagine the street trees smaller with the specimen trees around the monument sign, it's pretty screened as it is. And this is looking at it from the Saddleback corner, where you're probably going to have the best view of the building of anything. So,
yeah, well, I think the trees do a lot to break it up so it doesn't look as big as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a necessity, and whatever you can do to continue to break up that view would be useful.
Yeah.
I also understand you don't want to totally break it up because you don't want to detract from the retail, but
We want it
it's
to
an
be
interesting
seen, and
balance.
also, I mean, the other ideas that you would have theoretically would be to create a landscaped berm in front of it, but that's not conducive to a walkable community. And we want people to walk here. We want, we have a park right across the street. We want interaction. We want community. We want eyes on the street. We want activity on the street. Those are the things that we've gone for. And we are in Southern California. We are autocentric. We've grown up with cars. We've had cars. So it makes placemaking in this area even that much harder. So we've done a lot of things to try to relate this building to the street, to try to relate the building to the park, connections across the street to the park, things like that, to get people where you see activity and you want to be there, you want to be a part of that. So there was a lot of planning goals that went into the area plan well before I was in this project, when Scott and staff was working on it. But since my involvement with this project, I mean, that's been one of our big things. We want to have an active retail space. And that was important to the city when we first started talking about it, and it's important to us because successful retail will make it an even better project.
Hi, I'm Ed with AVRP Studios. I just wanted to make a comment, if I may, on the issue of the monolithic structure. So as a professional, it is our goal to create form with the interests of our client. And so when we inherited this project from the previous architect, what we had was, in fact, a monolithic structure, in that it is a single form, no formal breaks in that form. And so we took a lot of care and intention to create something that was not monolithic. And so by not being monolithic, I mean that there are shifts, breaks in that form that break what is just a mass into smaller pieces. And that's important because from a pedestrian scale, large scale is intimidating, and it's not inviting, and it's not conducive to retail or residential use. And so really what we did was took what was a monolithic project and created variety, created breaks, shifts in those planes, which breaks the scale, which creates a pedestrian scale, really brings that what would have been a monolithic structure into smaller pieces. And that actually resembles something that's done in Europe, was done traditionally in Europe, which is smaller, narrow buildings. It's very conducive to a retail environment and to pedestrians. So I think what we have really is not a monolithic structure, but it's something that has a great deal of variation, which I can show in elevation, the great care that was taken to do that. Also, siting the building was done in a way that the narrow edge of the building is what is most close to the public view. The building actually, in perspective, the long edge is facing away from you on the street. So it really, it's sited well. The vegetation will, care for a lot of that, and formally, we took great care to break that up. So that's
Thank you.
helpful.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the commission has already brought the discussion back up to this particular podium, and so the speaker cards really aren't relevant at this time, but I would like to ask Mr. Herzberg a question, and he could come up. Unfortunately, I forgot my question, but maybe you'd like to say something.
Thank you very much. This is over on Los Alisos. This is a beautiful apartment complex with an underground garage. I think you guys could talk about flattening out and enlarging the footprint of this building. This is it. They put the parking underneath. It's a 3-story structure. Of course, it has balconies and things I like and setbacks. But we have this is the monolith, guys. This is a 4-story monolith. We just want it lower. I have nothing against having 57 units there. We just didn't discuss it in 2013. They talked about granny units and spreading things around. That's where we left it. We didn't talk about this. I'm saying, architecturally, can we do something? Increase the footprint. When you do that, you can do all kinds of cool setbacks. You can do a lot of neat things. What worries me, and I'm going to say this, I'm hearing a lot of comments that the retail is killer. Oh, this looks great for the retail. I'm not hearing about the people that are going to live in this damn building. Okay, excuse me. This darn building. Is this a warehouse for seniors? Why are we building this? Are we building a little prison? This is 500 square feet. I understand the need for affordable housing, but let's care about the people that live there. I keep hearing about people caring about the people who are getting coffee down below.
Okay, thank you for answering my question, I guess. So, Ms. Mona, if it's something that's been said before, then I won't have a question for that. But if you have something bright, new, and special, then I will have that question, and I think you know what my question is. You're going to answer it.
Well, I'm not intuitive, but I do have something new. I find that offensive and ugly. That looks like something that's off the 15 freeway in San Bernardino. That doesn't belong in Lake Forest. It doesn't belong in a foothill, semi-rural community of gorgeous homes. This building is going across the street from new $1 million homes. It's almost schizophrenic. It doesn't. I don't know what you guys. What you guys are the planning commission. It doesn't go. It doesn't match what's already there.
Okay.
I'm asking you to represent the citizens here. The builders are going to make their money and move on. They're not going to have to live here. We're living here. We're going to be stuck with this monstrosity and this blight for perpetuity as long as we own our homes. Please represent the community. Please represent your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we can agree no more cards. Does anybody else have any more discussion, any more questions of staff, any more questions of the applicant? Is there any more?
One more card, I'm sorry.
You know, I told you no more cards. I'm sorry. We're back up here, and I went out of bounds with this, and I think my attorney would.
Can I just, I'm sorry, I'll just make a comment there real quick, just regarding the landscape.
No, you can't do it unless it's at the microphone. And you know what? Because third time's a charm, I'll do 3, but you have to come to the microphone.
All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but it is very, oh, sorry.
You have to do your name.
Yes, my name's Adam Weaver, I live in Portola Hills.
And you only have a minute this time, not 3.
I will, yeah, not a problem. So I'm very passionate about landscape. For me, that is a quintessential part of any piece of architecture. One thing that I love about Portola Hills is it's comprised mainly of all California natives, coyote brush, sages. It's like a piece of just virgin, what California really is, okay? And I heard the gentleman talk about, putting bougainvillea outside. That's not a native California plant. I don't have anything against bougainvillea, but I just want to make the point about, when landscaping, if to the extent possible, not only for the Portola Oaks project, but for this as well too, if we could try to adhere to what's already there, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love my drive home, and part of that is the landscaping and the palette that's up there. And I think it's also from a trend standpoint and kind of longevity and kind of making it blend in. I really think that would go a long way. So
thank you very much.
Thank you.
So what the developer's saying is it's in the area plan, and that's kind of what they're planning on doing. So
Yeah, that was all part of the original back in 2013. So it's already there.
But thank you for your opinion. That's important.
You know what we're looking at, and we do appreciate all the feedback. It's one of those dilemmas that we've got an area plan and a development agreement that was all reached not quite 3 years ago. A lot of this stuff is outside of our control. It was all agreed to after a series of many workshops with the public. We had countless numbers of people from Portola Hills that were in this very facility to express themselves. We had site walks. We did so many different things back then. And we started out, you would have to call it an adversarial kind of position between the community and the city. And in the end, it was non-adversarial, it was a joint effort, it was something that worked out, and now we're seeing the project, and we're getting, not everything's going to work out to everybody's satisfaction 100% of the time. We just can't do that. I mean, that's not the way that the world works. So we're doing our best within the constraints that we already have established that were agreed to by the city and the developers and the community at large almost 3 years ago. So if we seem like we're not listening to you, that's not true. We are listening to you, and we do want to do everything, but to the degree that we can, we will. All right, so I just want to make sure that we're understanding that. We're at 45 feet. That's legitimate by the development agreement. And with the 10 feet for architectural, all right, so we're talking about, what, 6 feet? All right? They're asking for 6 feet. Do we want to grant them 6 feet for the tower? Because they're entitled to 10 over the 45 by the agreement that was set almost 3 years ago. We can't do anything about that. The things that we can do if we, in this aspect is, do we want to send it back to them and have them go through an architect again to bring us different styles? I mean, that's certainly something we could do, right? But we can't change the fact that they've got a 45-foot building height and they're entitled to a 10-foot architectural element on top of that. That's a done deal. I've seen a lot of comments on this. People, what are we going to do with a 61-foot building? Well, we don't have a 61-foot building. We have a 45-foot building, and that's legitimate. And the developers said that they're responsible for the retail, and they are. If it doesn't go, they're the ones that are going to lose money. But yes, it could be a blight on our community. But I don't think they're going to be. I don't think it's going to be a blight. I think that the retail will go. I have to trust that they know what they're doing there. It's been proposed subterranean parking and lower the building height. I don't know that that's something we can enforce. I don't think we can do that. I think it's outside of what's been agreed to years ago. So, my thing is, if we want to look at other views, other architectural styles, this is our chance to do it. We have to send it back to them if we're going to do it. We got to do it tonight. Otherwise, we got to move forward.
Well, at this point, I would like to look for a motion, unless somebody else would like to. Because I know, Tom, we've heard from you. Mark, do you want to say? I like the plan. I like Santa Barbara, and I believe that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as far as what previous councils have directed us to do. And I don't think we need to send it back and say, "Oh, give us a different style."
Well, I think the developers done what they were instructed to do, and I can't see where they've deviated from the plan and what they were directed to do. So, I make a motion to accept the staff review and recommendation. With the condition of approval for the parking, the one.
Yes, I think we talked about two, a condition of that they limit one car per resident, and then later we had just talked about California-friendly landscape, which again is in the area plan, but if you want to belt and suspenders, put it on, we can do that. If you want to move forward, you'll want to close the public hearing as well as part of your motion.
Yes. I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Motion's carries with Commissioner Glidden in opposition. All right, so we are moving on, and thank you very, very much for everybody that came and gave your opinions. We do value them. And thank you, Mr. Malloy and staff. So we are going to move on to any discussion items. Does anybody have anything? No? Director's comments.
In the month of May, our next meeting is scheduled for May 14th or 16th, May 12th. And so we would also like to calendar a second meeting, and that would be on the second Thursday of the month. So there would be 2 meetings of the commission in the month of May.
With that, can we make a motion to add the additional meeting
I'll make a motion to add the additional meeting,
on
May the 26th.
May the 26th?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Do you have any more comments, Gail?
No, those are all of my comments. Thank you.
City Attorney?
No comment.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with you, Mark, for Director's comments.
Just want to thank Peggy, actually, for keeping us up to date on what's going on and the little treats every month, so thank you.
Well, I'll go next. We'll go down the line. I just want to say that I think it's great that we have Jerry with us. You always come through with some history and some reasoning. I don't always agree with you, but lately I've been agreeing with you. But I really do appreciate your history and your tenure here, and I think that you're a valuable asset to this commission, and I thank you.
I would second the chairman's comments about that. I think your knowledge of the past is very useful and certainly has been very helpful in this discussion tonight, which I thought was a very interesting one. Yeah. We're not going to make everybody happy with this situation, but I think the commission did the right thing.
I have no comment.
With that, we'll adjourn.